Good morning, English 11. Mr. Johnson here. Happy Tuesday. Happy almost summer break. We're really close. I can almost smell it. But of course, we're ending on kind of a strange note. I think we can all agree. Coronavirus obviously dominated this trimester. It made it a strange trimester, a really difficult trimester for a lot of us. And now the tone has shifted yet again. We're looking at least I was glued to the television and glued to my Snapchat maps and glued to online forums trying to figure out what was happening this past weekend, trying to get as much information as I could and just trying to really understand a very human but a really, in many ways, heartbreaking story unfolding before us. I mean, this is sort of the America we all know and love, but it's a little bit of an uglier side of America. It's a side of America that has always been here. It's always been a part of America, or at least in some way, shape, or form. We've always had racism in America. And now, of course, it's just coming to a head yet again, and it's not the last time probably that we will be having this conversation, because I think there's a lot of change that would need to happen in order for America to heal after years and years and centuries really of sort of institutionalized racism in this country. Of course, I have a lot of emotions personally going through my mind this past weekend. Obviously, I look at the video of George Floyd, taking his last breaths, and that police officer, right, and that is horrific. We had so many conversations about civil disobedience in trimester 1 of this class. And I think you remember that we, for the most part, we kind of decided that civil disobedience is a part of American culture, and that's necessary in its own way. It's kind of beautiful. And then there's this uglier element that's happening at the same time. We're seeing arson, we're seeing looting, that sort of thing. Is hard to watch, and I think it's hard to have. Just so close and so proximate. I mean, very rarely is Minneapolis in the spotlight on a national or international level, but this week we made it, and so especially it's hard to watch for such a when the stakes are so high, and right, it's for a sad reason. So enter contemporary poetry. What is the goal of poetry? Well, I think yesterday when we started with Billy Collins, even if you couldn't totally relate, I think the vast majority of you, just judging on the comments in the assignment, you really got it. You really understood that this guy is trying to communicate something of his own human experience to us as readers. He's trying to convey what is it like to be, like a 68-year-old man, like walking through a mall and seeing a young woman swear or whatever, right? And or what is it like to wonder whether your dog really loves you, right? Those are basic human things which at some level, even if we can't 100% relate to, because we're not, maybe you're not a dog owner, or maybe you're not a 68-year-old man. Odds are you're probably not, right? Because you're in my class. But you can see that he's trying to communicate something of the human experience to you. That's the goal of poetry. That's the goal of really all art. But the thing is, what you have to realize about contemporary poetry is that it's often about something that is a little bit more relevant, something that's a little bit more maybe topical to the specific time period. And so today, given what's happened in Minneapolis, given what's happened just in the last 400 years with racism in this country, I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to explore some poetry. And of course, this isn't going to come from me. I'm not going to be composing this poetry myself. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find somebody who is well respected, who's won awards, and who has a far better grasp on race relations in this country. So I'm going to let Claudia Rankine take this one, and she's going to read a poem of hers. And I think after reading it, of course, it's the same thing. I'm not going to ask you to analyze it deeply. What I'm looking for, of course, is your reaction. How does this poem make you feel? and realize that it might not be 100% relatable to you, right? And if it is, great. But if it's not, that's okay too. It's not about necessarily realizing that you can relate to this on a personal level. All I'm asking is for you to react to this in whatever way makes sense for you, to realize that this person has had a very specific human experience, right? Their life has been lived just all of the events of their life. It just spans through time, before them and behind them, in the same way that yours does, right? And so what you have to do is go, can I understand what this person is trying to communicate to me about their life? And then if you can have a reaction to that, and you can go, wow, I feel empathy for this person, or maybe it is relatable to you. I understand this on a personal level because it reminds me of this. So I'll have just 2 questions for you. It's super basic. There's one poem. It's a little bit longer, but I'm really just going to be asking 2 questions. How does this make you feel? What sort of emotions how does it make you feel? Is it relatable at all? And then the second question will be, does this remind you of your own personal experience? And if you feel comfortable sharing that personal experience with me, I would love to listen to it and love to hear it. So yeah, I'll let Claudia Rankine take it away. And of course, her poem will be linked below if you need to reread it, because it's a little bit dense. This one is definitely tougher than Billy Collins.
I knew whatever was in front of me was happening, and then the police vehicle came to a screeching halt in front of me, like they were setting up a blockade. Everywhere were flashes, a siren sounding, and a stretched out roar. Get on the ground. Get on the ground now. Then I just knew. And you are not the guy, and still you fit the description, because there is only one guy who is always the guy fitting the description. I left my client's house knowing I would be pulled over. I just knew. I opened my briefcase on the passenger seat just so they could see. Yes, officer rolled around on my tongue, which grew out of the bell that could never ring because its emergency was a tolling I would have to swallow. In a landscape drawn from an ocean bed, you can't drive yourself sane. So angry you are crying, you can't drive yourself sane. The motion wears a guy out. Our motion is wearing you out, and still you are not the guy. Then flashes a siren, a stretched out roar, and you are not the guy, and still you fit the description, because there is only one guy who is always the guy fitting the description. Get on the ground. Get on the ground now. I must have been speeding. No, you weren't speeding. I wasn't speeding. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why are you pulling me over? Why am I pulled over? Put your hands where they can be seen. Put your hands in the air. Put your hands up. Then you are stretched out on the hood, then cuffed. Get on the ground now. Each time it begins in the same way, it doesn't begin the same way. Each time it begins, it's the same. Flashes, a siren, the stretched out roar. Maybe because home as a hood the officer could not afford, not that a reason was needed. I was pulled out of my vehicle, a block from my door, handcuffed and pushed into the police vehicle's back seat, the officer's knee pressing into my collarbone, the officer's warm breath vacating a face creased into the smile of its own private joke. Each time it begins in the same way, it doesn't begin the same way. Each time it begins, it's the same. Go ahead and hit me, motherfucker, fled my lips, and the officer did not need to hit me. The officer did not need anything from me except the look on my face on the drive across town. You can't drive yourself sane. You are not insane. Our motion is wearing you out. You are not the guy. This is what it looks like. You know this is wrong. This is not what it looks like. You need to be quiet. This is wrong. You need to close your mouth now. This is what it looks like. Why are you talking if you haven't done anything wrong? and you're not the guy, and still you fit the description because there is only one guy who is always the guy fitting the description. In a landscape drawn from the ocean bed, you can't drive yourself sane. So angry, you can't drive yourself sane. The charge the officer decided on was exhibition of speed. I was told after the fingerprinting to stand naked. I stood naked. It was only then I was instructed to dress, to leave, to walk all those miles back home. And still you are not the guy, and still you fit the description, because there is only one guy who is always the guy fitting the description. Thank you.